Hi, I'm Ken Sandberg.
And I'm Heather Michelle Lawler.
Welcome to Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
I have wine. I am happy.
Yes, welcome back, campers. It is wine o'clock.
It is wine o'clock because it's like...
If that's your thing.
I mean, it's my thing. Anyone who knows me knows. And it is currently almost 10:30 at night as we record this, so I have been very good and milked half a glass during the Golden Globes so I wouldn't be slurring my words during our podcast recording.
Which is good.
You're welcome, listeners.
This week you're reading, so
I am.
If you're all slurry...
I know, and I knew that. So I poured little quarter glasses twice. And I was just like, cheers every time somebody won. And then now I have a full glass, and cheers to you listeners.
So, Golden Globes.
Yeah.
Any surprises?
My mom just texted me. She's like, I can't believe Hamilton didn't win. And I was like, and we were just talking about it downstairs. And I don't think Lin-Manuel Miranda expected it to win because unlike all the other films in that category, it was not filmed to be a film. It was a film version of a Broadway show, which was very well done, but was never going to be released. Well, it was going to be released, but in a decade if COVID hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So it was weird that was going up against Borat, which, spoiler alert, Borat won, which was freaking hilarious, just like the first one. But this one was just so good, and I'm so glad that it won for Sacha Baron Cohen's performance. And, yes.
It won
performance
Best Picture,
and Best Comedy Musical.
Best Picture, Comedy Musical.
Yeah.
Because the Golden Globes separate comedy musical from drama.
Which the Academy Awards should do.
Which I appreciate.
Yep.
And then both the Golden Globes and the Oscars need to start presenting awards in stunt categories because those fuckers work their asses off.
I think there should be a category for Best Extra. Because or worst extra. Because that'd be a fun category.
I feel like that's a Razzies category.
I hope it is.
Is extras who ruined the shot. Most egregious overacting in the background.
In the non-SAG background work.
And it's okay for me to make fun of these people.
Because I've done
because I am one.
So am I.
It's the person who graduated from musical theater school, booked a gig in the background of a major movie, and decided they were going to get their big break by impressing the director with their background work.
Or it's the people that I met at background work that have never had a day of acting training in their life, but have decided at some point in their life that they're going to be an actor, and this was their way in. Yeah. So, Golden Globes, having a glass of wine, you're having a beer.
Yep.
Thank you. Jeff and Ashley left those from last week, the Breckenridge. They brought them from Colorado.
Thank you, Jeff and Ashley, for leaving these behind.
Yeah, they're good.
This is the Avalanche Amber Ale from Breckenridge Brewery.
Yeah, it's good. I've had it.
Caramel malt body with a light hop character.
Mm-hmm.
Yum.
Yeah, Colorado's got some good beer.
That was unsolicited advertising.
If you want to sponsor us.
Breckenridge Brewery.
We do a lot of that.
Although, speaking of promotions, do we have a promotion to share this week?
We do indeed have a trailer. This is for Figure It Out podcast with Julia Johnson. I'm going to let her tell you all about it.
All right.
Hey there, listeners. Are you looking for a podcast that talks about mental health, hot mess moments, embarrassing moments, and relatable moments? Then my podcast is the one for you. Check out Figure It Out with host Julia Johnson. That's me. I have really funny guests on, and we just talk and chat and relate, and I hope you can too. If you're interested, my podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Thank you. Bye.
Aw.
Yeah, I like her mellow vibe.
She's got a great, great energy, great, very, very chilled out vibe. I like it.
Yeah, it's just the first promo we've had that's not true crime. Which is interesting.
We're branching out.
Yay. So, yes, please go check out Julia's podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm gonna see if maybe like we can be on it because I like to talk about my mental health. That's for sure. You know that.
Yeah, Julia.
Julia, Heather has things to say.
Reach out. You're looking for funny, outspoken guests who like to chill out and talk about mental health.
Hi. We have a degree in theater, which is basically means we have like 3 degrees in theater.
Between the two of us, I think we have 7 degrees in theater.
Something like that. So yeah, and if anyone is listening that has done theater or has been to theater school, they say it's not therapy, but they're lying.
Well, what is it? Theater isn't therapy.
Yes.
But it's pretty therapeutic.
But it's super fucking therapeutic. Yep. So, yeah, go check out Figure It Out podcast, and maybe we'll be popping up there sometime soon. So, yay. Oh, my gosh. Speaking of mental health, I'm going to drink some more wine.
All right. Well, while you do that,
Okay.
How about I tell you a little bit about what you're going to be reading this week?
That's right. I'm going to read a little story.
A little story.
A little ditty.
A bit of I don't know where I'm going with this.
A tale.
A tale. A yarn.
A yarn.
You're going to be reading a yarn.
I'm not doing an Irish accent in this one, am I?
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, good.
I don't think so. Our playwright is our author is American.
Oh, well, good. Let's hope that there's no Germans, at least.
So Olivia Howard Dunbar
Ooh, a lady.
was born in 1873 in West Bridgeport, Massachusetts. She is an American short story writer, journalist, and biographer, best known today for her ghost fiction.
Yay, I love ghost stories.
I know
They're my
you like
favorite.
the ghost stories. So this, much like last week, this is a woman who there wasn't a ton of information on her available. Her Wikipedia page was like 4 sentences long.
I love that our last 2 authors are people that are just like undiscovered gems. Like they were popular at the time, but then they kind of fell between the cracks for whatever reason. And yeah, this is great.
So today's fun facts came a little bit from Wikipedia, from the Library of America's Story of the Week,
Okay.
from Dunbar's obituary, and from her essay, The Decay of the Ghost in Fiction, which I'm going to talk about a bit during the fun facts.
Okay.
All right. So, as I said, Dunbar was born in Massachusetts, 1873. She graduated from Smith College, after which she worked in newspaper journalism.
So she was a working woman at a very age where that was not a thing.
Yep, she hit the ground running.
What a badass.
She worked for the New York World, during which time she penned an expose on Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science.
Christian Science, as in like Scientology?
Not the same thing.
I always confuse them.
But
Neither of them likes medical health, like the medical field for whatever reason.
A similarly, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but a similarly peculiar religious choice. The Christian Scientists.
Okay, I'll have to watch their documentary next. I'm deep in Leah Remini's right now about Scientology.
As a short story writer and critic, she was published in many popular periodicals of her time, including The Dial and Harper's Magazine.
All right.
Dunbar wrote several ghost stories, as well as a 1905 essay, The Decay of the Ghost in Fiction, defending the subgenre of ghost fiction.
Okay.
In it, she said, quote, "Ever since literature began, what we call the supernatural has been the staple material of the tellers of tales." She talked about the tradition we've discussed on this podcast of telling ghost stories, especially around Christmas. She discussed how many ghost stories used to appear in magazines in America and the UK, but then went on to say, "But suddenly, and it must surely have seemed mysteriously, the magazine ghost vanished, nor were its eerie footprints traced." So she was talking about how in the early 20th century, ghost stories just kind of disappeared. People weren't writing that sort of horror short story anymore. And she came out
asking why
and defending it as like, no, ghost stories are not passé. There's a reason they were all the rave.
Yeah.
The whole article is actually very interesting and asks not only that ghost stories be brought back into mainstream literature, but it also asserts that actual belief in ghosts was at an all-time high at that time.
Interesting. So that like contradicts itself. So the only thing I can think is that because of the turn of the century, and it being such a big like time, and like the Industrial Revolution, like electricity and like there was a lot of scientific advances happening then.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where people were writing more in like the sci-fi genre as opposed to ghosts. That's immediately where my brain went, and like where did the ghost stories go?
Yeah.
That instead of the unknown, now people were writing about the possible. I don't know, but that's where my brain went. But like, I love a good ghost story, so bring it on.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, her call for more supernatural stories actually was answered over the next several decades. And after her essay came out, magazines noted an uptick in new stories of the supernatural being submitted, and short stories written at publishers, particularly by women.
Fuck yeah. So we can thank her for uprise in women writers and what is now the Travel and Discovery Channel, which is just all paranormal investigators. Ghost adventurers, ghost hunters, ghost explorers, search for Bigfoot. This one's different. That one's stupid.
It's still a supernatural searching thing.
That one's funny.
What confuses me is how many of those are on Travel Channel.
They're on the Travel Channel. I'm like, why? I'm like, can you show, especially during COVID, I'm like, go to like Italy and just take pictures so I can feel like I'm going somewhere. Go anywhere. Go to freaking Jersey. I don't care.
Stanley Tucci's taking care of that for you.
That's on CNN. So, like, good job, CNN.
So travel is now news, and ghost stories are now travel?
Well, and
but aliens
Bravo,
have also been history for decades.
And Bravo and MTV are now all reality shows about spoiled white people. So, you know, it's, the world turned upside down, as Hamilton says.
Dunbar was active in the women's suffrage movement.
Of course she was.
And her work has been noted by critics and reviewers to contain strong feminist themes.
Boom, girl.
She married the poet Ridgely Torrance in 1914. He would go on to become, in 1917, the first American playwright to feature an all-black cast in a non-minstrel production on Broadway.
Fuck yes. What play?
The show was called 3 Plays for a Negro Theater.
I remember that. We studied that in Felicia's class.
Did we?
We talked about that.
Oh, I believe you.
We definitely talked about that in Felicia's class. That was our theater history class.
I was in and out of that class.
So cool. So first of all, she didn't get married till she was like almost 40.
41.
Yeah. So that is unheard of in the time. And she's got an awesome like writer husband who's like super progressive and like inclusive. Love that. Love this. Yeah. That's a power couple.
Yeah. They got married. They both continued to work. She continued to fight for women's suffrage. She finally passed away in 1953.
All right. She was almost 80.
80 or 81, depending on the month.
Good job. Yeah. What a badass.
So the story you're going to be reading today came out in 1908, 3 years after that essay she published, and it is called The Shell of Sense.
The Shell of Sense. So my great-grandmother was born in 1900, and she passed away when she was 101. So she could have actually read this when it was published, because she was 8 years old. And, like, kids love ghost stories. Yeah. So that's why I'm going to imagine that my great-grandmother, Lola Peterson, read this.
I have no idea what the writing level is at, so it's possible that her reading this as an 8-year-old would have been traumatic.
Possibly. But, you know, you never know.
All right, so let's start this fire.
Let's do it. It's good. The Shell of Sense by Olivia Howard Dunbar. It was intolerably unchanged, the dim, dark-toned room. In an agony of recognition, my glance ran from one to another of the comfortable, familiar things my earthly life had been passed among. Incredibly distant from it all, I essentially was. I noted sharply the very gaps that I myself had left in my bookshelves stood still unfilled, that the delicate fingers of the ferns that I had tended were still stretched futilely toward the light, that the soft, agreeable chuckle of my own little clock, like some elderly woman with whom conversations had been automatic, was undiminished.
Holy shit, this is a ghost story from the point of view of the ghost.
Yeah. I wonder if she, like, just died. Like, is this, like, that moment in, like, Ghost the movie where he's, like, he's looking around and he's like,
oh shit, that's my body.
I'm dead, damn it.
I didn't agree to this.
This is stupid. Unchanged, or so it seemed at first. Oh, so it's more like Beetlejuice. Like when they come home and like life's like da 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 da, and then they try and leave and there's a sandworm outside and they're like, what the fuck? Unchanged, or so it seemed at first. But there were certain trivial differences that shortly smote me. The windows were closed too tightly, for I had always kept the house very cool, although I had known that Theresa preferred warm rooms. And my work basket was in disorder. It was preposterous that a small thing should hurt me so. She's an OC. She was an OCD person in life, and her shit's all like amuck.
Who the fuck is Theresa?
Yeah, I want to know who Theresa is.
Are we making the unfounded assumption at this point that the ghost is a woman?
Yes, because they have not been gendered yet.
They haven't been gendered yet.
But I always assume if a woman's writing it, they're writing a woman.
Yeah.
I always assume a man's writing a man too.
Yeah.
Like,
but that was we did that with
I know.
Mary Pask.
I know.
That we assumed
and it was a guy. Like halfway through the story, we're like, I think this is a guy because the carriage boy called him sir.
Yep.
We were like, is carriage boy a little dim, or are we've been reading this wrong?
Is carriage boy a little dim, or oh fuck, am I a little dim?
We're a little dim.
God damn it.
So yes, we do not know the gender of this ghost yet.
Gender's confusing.
They're ghosts and they can be whatever they want.
I imagine we will find out.
I imagine they will get gendered at some point in this story. Then, for this was my first experience of the shadow-folded transition, the odd alteration of my emotions bewildered me. For at one moment, the place seemed so humanly familiar, so distinctly my own proper envelope that, for love of it, I could have laid my cheek upon the wall, while in the next, I was miserably conscious of a strange new shrillness. How could they be endured? And had I ever endured them? Those harsh influences now that I perceived at the window, light and color so blinding that they obscured the form of the wind, tumult so discordant that one could scarcely hear the roses open in the garden below. So is everything loud?
Everything's loud and bright and just not...
Something's off. Like everything's...
Not what
she remembers.
Not what it was like in life.
They remember. We still don't know. Yeah. Or like they didn't notice that when they were alive, at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
I suppose it would be very jarring.
But Theresa did not seem to mind any of these things. Who the fuck's Theresa?
Who's this bitch?
Who's Theresa? Why is she locking up the windows and making a mess and she doesn't care about anything? But Theresa did not seem to mind any of these things. Disorder, it is true, the dear child had never minded. Oh, it's a child. Or maybe?
Or it's a patronizing way to talk about a woman.
Another person. Disorder, it is true, the dear child never minded. She was sitting all this time at my desk. At my desk. Occupied. I could only too easily surmise how. In the light of my own habits of precision, it was plain that sombre?
Somber?
It's not well, oh, is it somber? It was the R and the E.
Somber?
It looks like sombre. It looks like it's
sombre.
It's like spelled like ombre, but I hate the English language. It is terrible. In the light of my own habits of precision, it was plain that somber correspondence should have been attended to before. But I believe that I did not really reproach Theresa, For I knew that her notes, when she did write them, were perhaps less perfunctory than mine. She finished the last one as I watched her, and added to it a heap of black boarded envelopes that lay on the desk. Poor girl. I saw now that they had cost her tears. Okay, so is this his, their wife or their, chambermaid? Or we're going to find out, I guess.
Child?
Or child. Yeah. Come on, give us some relationship. Yet, living beside her day after day, year after year, I had never discovered what deep tenderness my sister possessed.
Sister. There we go.
You ask and you shall receive. Toward each other, it had been our habit to display only a temperate affection, and I remember having always thought it distinctly fortunate for Theresa, since she was denied my happiness, that she should live so easily and pleasantly without emotions of the devastating sort. And now, for the first time, I was really to behold her. Could it be Theresa, after all, this tangle of subdued turbulences? Let no one suppose that it is an easy thing to bear. The relentlessly... Goddamn.
It's a good tangle of words.
The relentlessly lucid understanding that I should first exercise... God damn it, there's so many words.
Apparently...
She's very poetic.
She's very smart, and she wants to make sure you know it.
It's very pretty, but it's a lot to just bleep, bleep, bleep.
I would like to point out, it is neither Irish nor German. You're welcome.
Or Scots. Could it be Theresa, after all, this tangle of subdued turbulences? Let no one suppose that it is an easy thing to bear, this relentlessly lucid understanding that I then first exercised, or that, in its first enfranchisement, the timid vision does not yearn for its old screens and mists.
Made it through.
I got there. Suddenly, as Theresa sat there, her head filled with its tender thoughts of me, held in her gentle hands, I felt Alan's step on the carpeted stair outside. Who the fuck's Alan?
I'm going to go with husband.
Her husband. Or ghost husband.
Ghost husband.
Okay.
Because she said something about Theresa didn't have what I had or something like that. Something about the phrasing, I was like, oh, so Ghost is married. Theresa never got married.
She's like the spinster sister.
Yeah.
And okay.
That's my guess. I'm guessing we'll know soon.
Theresa felt it too, but how? For it was not audible. She gave a start, swept the black envelopes out of sight, and pretended to be writing in a little book. Then I forgot to watch her any longer in my absorption in Alan's coming. Ghost sex puns, ghost sex puns. I stopped watching my sister because I was so absorbed in Alan's coming. And not Alan Cumming.
I am often absorbed in Alan Cumming, too.
Alan Cumming's pretty great. So I'm just saying.
She was absorbing Alan's coming, so she stopped paying attention to her sister.
There it is. That's what happened. That's what she wrote.
That's what she said on paper.
Yeah. That's the new one. That's what she said. That's what she wrote. Then I forgot to watch her any longer in my absorption in Alan's coming. It was he, of course, that I was awaiting. It was for him that I had made this first lonely, frightened effort to return, to recover. It was not that I supposed he would allow himself to recognize my presence, for I had long been sufficiently familiar with his hard and fast denials of the invisible. He was so reasonable always, so sane, so blindfolded. But I had hoped that because of his very rejection of the ether that now contained me, I could perhaps all the more safely and more secretly watch him, linger near him. He was near now, very near. But why did Theresa sitting there in the room that had never belonged to her, appropriate for herself, his coming?
Appropriate?
Oh, it's spelled the same. God, I hate the English language. He was near now, very near. But why did Theresa, sitting there in the room that had never belonged to her, appropriate for herself his coming?
Oh my God, this ghost is stalking her
ex-husband or her ex-lover or her sister's husband. We still don't know the relationships. She's stalking someone named Alan, and her sister's in her office? Yeah, because she said my office.
My desk.
But we still don't know if the ghost is a her. It could also still be a guy.
Based on how she described how the ghost described its relationship to its sister,
yes.
I'm assuming sisters.
It feels like a very feminine description, but, you know, we thought the same in Miss Mary Pask. So let's find out. Continuing. It was so manifestly I who had drawn him, I whom he had come to seek. The door was ajar. He knocked softly at it. "Are you there, Theresa?" he called. He expected to find her then. There in my room? Oh, shit!
Jealous ghost.
Here we go. "Are you there, Theresa?" he called. He expected to find her then? There in my room? I shrank back, fearing almost to stay. "I shall have to finish in a moment," Theresa told him, and he sat down to wait for her. No spirit still unreleased can understand the pang that I felt with Alan sitting almost within my touch. Almost irresistibly, the wish beset me to let him, for an instant, feel my nearness. Then I checked myself, remembering, observe. That's not what it says. Then I can't read.
You broke yourself.
I broke myself because apparently my dyslexia is taking over tonight.
In real hard.
I have slight dyslexia. I think we talked about that it's usually with numbers, but sometimes B's and D's get still mixed up in my head.
Sure.
So I definitely just read absurd as absurb. Like that's
Absurb.
what I just said. Which is not a word.
Which isn't a word.
It's amazing. The human brain.
Yeah.
The English language. Wine.
It's because you're left-handed.
It is because I'm left-handed and I'm a redhead. I am of the devil.
Yep.
So I also see things backwards. So I think I really am of the devil. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Then I checked myself, remembering, absurd, piteous human fears. That my too unguarded closeness might alarm him. What a judgy ghost. It was not so remote a time that I myself had known them, those blind, uncouth timidities? Timmy titties. I had known once upon a time those Timmy titties.
Once upon a time, I knew Timmy titties. I don't know them anymore.
I don't know them anymore because I'm a ghost.
Ghosts aren't allowed Timmy titties.
Oh, no. Do these go away when I die?
No,
I'm cool with it.
Those titties are not Timmy. They do not go away.
The listeners are like, what?
I assume I don't have to look up timidities.
No.
Okay.
It was not so remote a time that I myself had known them, those blind, uncouth timidities. I came, therefore, somewhat nearer, but I did not touch him. I merely leaned toward him and with incredible softness whispered his name. That much I could not have forborne. The spell of life was still too strong in me. But it gave him no comfort, no delight, Theresa, he called. So she's sitting there like, Alan, Theresa! Like, God damn, stupid humans. Theresa, he called in a voice dreadful with alarm. And in that instant, the last veil fell, and desperately, scarce believing, I beheld how it stood between them, those two. She turned to him, that gentle look of hers. Forgive me, came from him hoarsely, but I had suddenly the most unaccountable sensation. Can there be too many windows open? There's such a chill about. Oh, he did feel it.
Yep.
So it was like,
you don't have to believe.
So it was like, Theresa! Like, nah!
It was.
Alan!
What
Theresa!
the fuck?
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? What's happening? There are no windows open, Theresa assured him. I took care to shut out the chill. You're not well, Alan. Perhaps not, he embraced the suggestion, and yet I feel no illness apart from this abominable sensation that persists. Theresa, you must tell me. Do I fancy it, or do you, too, feel something strange here? Oh, there is something very strange here, she half sobbed. There always will be. Good heavens, child, I didn't mean that.
Whoa.
Well, Alan's a bitch. He rose
Also, given his last couple of line readings, Alan is being played by William Shatner.
He's got a lot of dashes and a lot of commas. I'll just say that. Alan is William Shatner. Now, I'm not going to attempt to William Shatner for the rest of this.
Do I fancy it?
Something strange here.
Do you feel something strange too?
Oh, that's good shit. Good heavens, child, I didn't mean that. He rose and stood looking about him. I know, of course, that you have your beliefs, and I respect them, but you know equally well that I have nothing of the sort. So, don't let us conjure up anything inexplicable. Hey, bitch, you're the one that shouted out to her and was like, it's cold.
There's something weird going on. I know it's my sister's ghost. No, fuck you. There's no such thing as ghosts.
Stupid woman. Ghost's gonna come get ya. I stayed impalpably, imponderably near him. That's two really fun I words in a row that I have never read out loud. Wretched and bereft though I was, I could not have left him while he stood denying me. What I mean, he went on in his low, distinct voice, is a special and almost ominous sense of cold. Upon my soul, Theresa. He paused.
So
Alan's a little dramatic. I just feel this pressure on my soul.
It's William Shatner in a Pinter play.
Yes. Beat, pause.
Dear listener, if you didn't understand that joke, I'm really sorry.
We say a lot of inside theater jokes, but if you do understand it,
look up Pinter pause.
Look up a Pinter pause or a Pinter play because... Anyway. He paused. If I were superstitious, if I were a woman, I should probably imagine it to seem a presence. What a dick. Alan's a dick. If I were a woman, I'd be afraid, because women are afraid. Alan's gonna get what's coming to him. I have a feeling.
Theresa's gonna stab him in the eye with a letter opener, and then he's gonna be stuck with our ghost narrator.
I hope so. He spoke the last word very faintly, but Theresa shrank from it nonetheless. "Don't say that, Alan," she cried out. "Don't think it, I beg you. I've tried so hard myself not to think it, and you must help me. You know it is only perturbed, uneasy spirits that wander. With her it is quite different. She has always been so happy. She must still be." I listened stunned to Theresa's sweet dogmatism. For what blind distances came her confident misapprehensions, how dense, both for her and for Alan, was the separating vapor.
Oh. I thought she was about to call her sister and her ex-husband dense.
I did too. I was like, how dense of them. What stupid fuckers these people are. Alan frowned. I have a feeling Alan frowns a lot.
Yeah.
"Don't take me literally, Theresa," he explained. And I, who a moment before had almost touched him, now held myself aloof and heard him with a strange, untried pity, new-born in me. "I'm not speaking of what you call spirits. It's something much more terrible." He allowed his head to sink heavily on his chest. "If I did not positively know that I had never done her any harm, I should suppose myself to be suffering from guilt, from remorse. Theresa, you know better than I, perhaps. Was she content always? Did she believe in me?" "Believe in you? When she knew you to be so good? When you adored her?" "She thought that. She said that? Then what in heaven's name ails me? Unless it is all as you believe, Theresa, and she knows now what she didn't know then. Poor dear. And mines." And then the longest dash I've ever seen in literature. Oh, no. "Mines what? What do you mean, Alan?" I, who with my perhaps illegitimate advantage saw so clear, knew that he had not meant to tell her. I did him that justice, even in my first jealousy. If I had not tortured him so by clinging near him, he would not have told her. But the moment came and overflowed, and he did tell her, passionate, tumultuous story that it was. During our life together, Alan's and mine, he had spared me, had kept me wrapped in the white cloak of an unblemished loyalty. Blah, 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 blah. Unblemished loyalty. But it would have been kinder, I now bitterly thought, if, like many husbands, he had years ago found for the story he now poured forth some clandestine listener I should not have known. But he was faithful and good, and so he waited till I, mute and chained, was there to hear him.
Oh.
This is why when people ask, would you rather be able to hear people's thoughts or, like, be invisible? I'm like, absolutely be invisible. I do not want to know what goes on in people's heads. That sounds like a fucking nightmare. I already have OCD anxiety and make up what's in people's heads. So I don't, and what's actually in their heads? Probably worse.
Although you assume probably worse because of...
Because I assume the worst most of the time. So well did I know him, as I thought. So thoroughly had he once been mine that I saw it in his eyes. I heard it in his voice before the words came. And yet, when it came, it lashed me with the whips of an unbearable humiliation. For I, his wife, had not known how greatly he could love. And that Theresa, soft little traitor, should in her still way have cared too. Where was the iron in her, I moaned within my stricken spirit? Where the steadfastness? From the moment he bade her, she turned her soft little petals up to him, and my last illusion was spent. They've been like fucking. They've been getting the gibbety on.
Or at least he's been in love with her all along.
Oh, no. It was intolerable, and nonetheless, so that in another moment she had, prompted by some belated thought of me, renounced him. Alan was hers, yet she put him from her, and it was my part to watch them both. Then, in the anguish of it all, I remembered, awkward, untutored spirit that I was, that I now had the great recourse. Whatever human things were unbearable, I had no need to bear. I ceased, therefore, to make the effort that kept me with them. The pitiless poignancy was dulled. The sounds and the light ceased. The lovers faded from me. And again, I was mercifully drawn into the dim, infinite spaces. Okay, so she's like, okay, I now know what's going on, but I don't have to be here. I can go wherever the fuck I want. So bye.
She just stopped concentrating and poofed.
And went, whee! Ghost away! There followed a period whose length I cannot measure, and during which I was able to make no progress in the difficult, dizzying experience of release. Earthbound, my jealousy relentlessly kept me. Though my two dear ones had forsworn each other, I could not trust them, for theirs seemed to be an affection of a more magnanimity. Yeah, it's a bitch.
Magnanimity.
Magnanimity.
Generosity.
Though my two dear ones had forsworn each other, I could not trust them, for there seemed to be an affection of a more than mortal magnanimity. Without a ghostly sentinel to prick them with sharp fears and recollections, who could believe that they would keep to it? Of the efficacy? It's right on the page turn.
Spell it.
EFFICACY. Efficacy.
The ability to produce a desired or intended result. Efficacy.
Okay. Of the efficacy of my own vigilance, so long as I might choose to exercise it, I could have no doubt. For I had by this time come to have a dreadful exultation in the new power that lived in me. Repeated delicate experiment had taught me how a touch or a breath, a wish or a whisper, could control Alan's acts, could keep him from Theresa. I could manifest myself as palely, as transiently. Okay, so bitch about to be like, I'm going back to Earth and I'm gonna haunt the fuck out of him so he never sleeps with my sister.
So she has learned, this is very Ghost. She has learned that she can she can
move
reach
the
out
penny
and touch him. She can whisper in his ear.
Yeah,
She
can move the penny up the door.
She can appear like a reflection.
Yeah. And she's going to haunt the fuck out of him so they never sleep together. Because if they feel that fear, then they're not going to feel comfortable. Damn, girl. I could manifest myself as palely, as transiently as I thought. I could produce the merest necessary flicker, like the shadow of a just opened leaf on his trembling, tortured consciousness. Ghost pissed? And these unrealized perceptions of me he interpreted, as I had known that he would, as his soul's inevitable penance. He had come to believe that he had done evil in silently loving Theresa all these years, and it was my vengeance to allow him to believe this, to prod him ever to believe it afresh. I like her.
How dare you look at my sister? I'm going
to haunt you forever.
Eat your brain from the inside.
Yeah. I am conscious that this frame of mind was not continuous in me. For I remember, too, that when Alan and Theresa were safely apart and sufficiently miserable, I loved them as dearly as I ever had. Oh, no. I love them dearly as I ever had. More dearly, perhaps. She's like, I was fine when I was alive and they both loved me, but they were fucking unhappy all the time.
As they were miserable, I was great.
I was fine. They both loved me and they were unhappy, and it was a great day in the country. For it was impossible that I should not perceive in my new emancipation that they were, each of them, something more and greater than the two beings I had once ignorantly pictured them. For years they had practiced a selflessness of which I could only scarcely have conceived, and which even now I could only admire without entering into its mystery. While I had lived solely for myself, these two divine creatures had lived exquisitely for me. They had granted me everything, themselves nothing. For my undeserving sake, their lives had been a constant torment of renunciation, a torment that they had not sought to alleviate by the exchange of a single glance of understanding. There were even marvelous moments when, from the depths of my newly informed heart, I pitied them. Poor creatures who, withheld from the infinite solaces that I had come to know, were still utterly within that shell of sense, so frail, so piteously contrived for pain.
Ooh, we get the title in a snippet of poetry.
Yep. Yeah, it breaks, like, it literally breaks into, like,
we get the
still
title
utterly within that space, like full line space, and then like indented, shell of sense, so frail, so piteously contrived for pain.
Yeah.
Poetry.
Poetry,
bitches.
That's how you highlight the title of your story. You give it its own paragraph.
So we're gonna now give it its own theme song.
Shell of sense.
Shell of sense now.
Shell of sense.
It's the shell of sense, so frail.
So piteously contrived
For pain. And the techno version. Shell of sense. So frail, so piteous, contrived for pain.
My favorite part of that
Was when I tried to beatbox.
No, I was going to say my favorite part of that was the dubstep beat that I just dropped into it.
Can't wait to hear it. I'm very excited. Within it, yes, yet exercising qualities that so sublimely transcended it. Yet the shy, hesitating compassion that thus had birth in me was far from being able to defeat the earlier, earthlier emotion. The two I recognized were in a sort of conflict, and I, regarding it, assumed that the conflict would never end. That for years, as Alan and Theresa reckoned time, I should be obliged to withhold myself from the great spaces and linger, suffering, grudging, shaming where they lingered.
So this ghost is torn between feeling bad for
her like sister and her
sister
husband.
and her widow.
Her widowed husband.
And feeling super jealous and competitive and bitter.
She's like, well, I'm dead. So, I mean, I guess they can do whatever they want now because I'm dead. But
also,
fuck, what?
Nope.
He never loved me and my sister? That's fucked up. Like, what would you do, listeners? Would you haunt them both? Or would you just move on and go hang out in, like, the eternal ice cream shop? It can never have been explained, I suppose, what, to devitalize perception such as mine, the contact of mortal beings with each other appears to be. Once to have exercised this sense-freed perception is to realize that the gift of prophecy, although the subject of such frequent marvel, is no longer mysterious. The merest glance of our sensitive and uncloyed vision can detect the strength of the relation between two beings, and therefore instantly calculate its duration. If you see a heavy weight suspended from a slender string, you know, without any wizardry, that in a few moments the string will snap. Well, such, if you admit the analogy, is prophecy, is foreknowledge.
Huh. So prophecy isn't actually supernatural. It's just looking at
Reading
the way
the
things
signs.
are and going, well, fucking duh.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's like back in, like, March of 2020 when, like, our leadership was like, it's just gonna go away. And we're looking at every other country and going,
I don't think it's just going to go away.
I don't think so. Well, at least smart people. But, like, yeah, if you, like, look around you, if you pay attention to the signs, if you, like, I always say I have a little psychic tendency, but I also have, like, a mental health issue that, like, makes me, like, see things in a way.
Hyper aware.
I'm very hyper aware of, like, people's emotions and, like, that kind of stuff. So, like, I read things that, like, some people don't see. It's like the Queen's Gambit. She's really good at, she can see this board. I wish it was, like, for good skill. It just makes me paranoid most of the time, honestly. But,
I wish my superpower did something other than give me anxiety.
come on, MCU. Why'd you give me this power? This is the worst. What can you do?
I have nervous breakdowns. Sometimes it gives me an upset tummy.
Sometimes I poop a lot because of my tummy.
Rejected heroes in the MCU.
Heather. Ouch. Where the hell was I in this crazy paragraph?
I think she was pooping because of an upset tummy.
She's pooping because of her empathy.
I hate it when being a good person makes me poop.
I know. One time I'll tell you the story of when I was a kid. That I think I've told you this story, but I was so anxious and I didn't know what it was, and like I had really weird poops during a 4th of July celebration, and I got really sick to my stomach because it was like very crowded and like I didn't like that kind of crowds, and then I got like I had like diarrhea in the mall bathroom, and it was the first time I remember it happening, and I wouldn't let myself poop for like weeks. And I was terrified to poop because my butt exploded.
I don't want it to happen again.
I wouldn't, and my parents had to take me to the doctor. And they gave me laxatives, and my dad and mom had to I was like 8 years old maybe. They had to hold me on the toilet.
Oh, we're gonna have to put a trigger warning at the front of this episode or something.
The doctor was like, Heather, if you don't poop, you're gonna die.
Which is a great way to convince an 8-year-old with undiagnosed anxiety.
Tell me about it. Oh my God. I'm laughing so hard, I'm crying, and I'm sweating. Oh my God. That was a tangent that we probably don't need to actually put in the episode.
We'll see how much of that makes it in. At the very least, I'll probably cut about 4 minutes of near silent laughter.
And it was thus that I saw it with Theresa and Alan, for it was perfectly visible to me that they would very little longer have the strength to preserve, near each other, the denuded impersonal relation that they, and that I, behind them, insisted on, and that they would have to separate.
Yeah, they're going to want to get nuded.
It was my sister, perhaps the more sensitive, who first realized this. It had now become possible for me to observe them, almost constantly. the effort necessary to visit them was so greatly diminished that I watched her, poor, anguished girl, prepare to leave him.
Haha, her haunting has worked.
I saw each reluctant movement that she made. I saw her eyes, worn from self-searching. I heard her step grown timid with inexplicable fears. I entered her very heart and heard its pitiful, wild beating. And still, I did not interfere.
Because dead sister's a bitch.
That would hurt. See, like, that'd be where I would, like, I'd still haunt the guy, but I'd feel real like my little sister who was on last week. Like, if I saw her in that much pain and, like, I was gone and, like, honestly, like, it doesn't, like, you're gone and, like, they never acted on it before and everything. So I'd totally let her be happy. I'd still haunt him because he doesn't really believe me anyway. So I would just, like, shove him around the house occasionally.
Except that then he's going to go bananas.
Oh, yeah, it'd be funny.
And now your sister is attached to this guy who's
a
out
whack
of his
job.
fucking mind.
Because he's being haunted. That's true. That's true.
He's going to, like, burn down the house trying to exorcise it.
That's true. Maybe I'd only haunt him for a little bit. And it'd be very subtle. I'd just, like, move his comb. I'd move his favorite coffee cup to a different cupboard and be like, hey,
Fuck.
Ashley, did you move the coffee cup? Like, no? Honey, you just put it in the wrong place again. Oh, okay. So not completely insane. I just, like, you know, do the thing. Woo. For at this time I had a wonderful, almost demonical sense of disposing of matters to suit my own selfish will. Well, at least she acknowledges it. At any moment I could have checked their miseries, could have restored happiness and peace. Yet it gave me, and I could weep to admit it, a monstrous joy to know that Theresa thought she was leaving Alan on her own free intention, when it was I who was contriving, arranging, insisting, and yet she wretchedly felt my presence near her. I am certain of that. A few days before the time of her intended departure, my sister told Alan that she must speak with him after dinner.
Oh, that's never a good sign.
Nope. Our beautiful old house branched out from a circular hall with great arched doors at either end, and it was through the rear doorway that always in summer, after dinner, we passed into the garden adjoining. As usual, therefore, when the hour came, Theresa led the way. That dreadful daytime brilliance that in my present state I found so hard to endure was now becoming softer. A delicate, capricious twilight breeze danced inconsequently through languidly whispering leaves. Lovely pale flowers blossomed like little moons in the dusk, and over them the breath of mignonette hung heavily. It was a perfect place, and it had so long been ours, Alan and mine. It made me restless and a little wicked that those two should be there together now. For a little they walked about together, speaking of common daily things. Then suddenly Theresa burst out. "I'm going away, Alan. I have stayed to do everything that needed to be done. Now your mother will be here to care for you, and it is time for me to go." He stared at her and stood still. Theresa had been there so long, she so definitely in his mind belonged there. And she was, as I also had jealously known, so lovely there, the small, dark, dainty creature in the old hall, on the wide staircases, in the garden. Life there without Theresa, even the intentionally remote, the perpetually renounced Theresa. He had not dreamed of it. He could not so suddenly conceive of it. "Sit here," he said, and drew her down beside him on a bench. "And tell me what it means, why you are going. Is it because of something that I have done?" She hesitated. I wondered if she would dare tell him. She looked out and away from him, and he waited long for her to speak. The pale stars were sliding into their places. The whispering of the leaves was almost hushed. All about them it was still and shadowy and sweet. It was that wonderful moment when, for lack of a visible horizon, the not yet darkened world seemed infinitely greater, a moment when anything can happen, anything be believed in. To me, watching, listening, hovering, there came a dreadful purpose and a dreadful courage. Suppose for one moment Theresa should not only feel, but see me. Would she dare to tell him then? There came a brief space of terrible effort. All my fluttering, uncertain forces strained to the utmost. The instant of my struggle was endlessly long, and the transition seemed to take place outside of me. As one sitting in a train, motionless, sees the leagues of earth float by. And then, in a bright, terrible flash, I knew I had achieved it. I had attained visibility.
Oh, shit.
Shuddering, insubstantially, but luminously apparent, I stood there before them. And for the instant that I maintained the visible state, I looked straight into Theresa's soul. Fucking shit. She gave a cry, and then, thing of silly, cruel impulses that I was, I saw what I had done. The very thing that I had wished to avert, I had precipitated. For Alan, in his sudden terror and pity, had bent and caught her in his arms. For the first time they were together, and it was I who brought them.
Ooh.
Oh, damn.
You screwed up.
Yep.
Their consciences probably would have kept them apart.
Mm-hmm. Then, to his whispered urging to tell the reason of her cry, Theresa said, Frances was here. Her name's Frances.
We got it.
There it is. Frances. Frances was here. You did not see her standing there under the lilacs with no smile on her face? My dear, was all that Alan said. I had so long now lived invisibly with them, he knew that she was right. I suppose you know what it means, she asked him calmly. Dear Theresa, Alan said slowly, if you and I should go away somewhere, could we not evade all this ghostliness? And will you come with me? Distance will not banish her, my sister confidently asserted. And then she said softly, have you thought what a lonely, awful thing it must be to be so newly dead? Pity her, Alan. We who are warm and alive should pity her. She loves you still. That is the meaning of it all, you know. And she wants us to understand that for that reason we must keep apart. Oh, it was so plain in her white face as she stood there, and you did not see her? It was your face that I saw, Alan solemnly told her. Oh, how different he had grown from the Alan that I had known. And yours is the only face that I shall ever see. And again, he drew her to him. She sprang from him. You are defying her, Alan, she cried.
Piss off the ghost.
He's like trying to make out. He's like, we have this beautiful garden and it's fine. And she's like, my sister's like here.
My dead sister is right there.
Like, I can still see her.
You fucking psycho.
She's like, I want to do it too, but we can't right now.
Dear listener, don't make out in front of your dead sister. It's weird.
Oh my God. She sprang from him. You are defying her, Alan, she cried. And you must not. It is her right to keep us apart if she wishes. It must be as she insists. I shall go, as I told you. And Alan, I beg of you, leave me the courage to do as she demands. They stood facing each other in the deep dusk, and the wounds that I had dealt them gaped red and accusing. "We must pity her," Theresa had said. And as I remembered that extraordinary speech and saw the agony in her face and the greater agony in Alan's, there came a great, irreparable cleavage.
Timmy titties.
Timmy titties.
And great cleavage.
There became a not so Timmy titty between the two of them.
She left her Timmy titties behind and developed great cleavage.
There was a giant cleavage between them.
Yeah, that's been the problem all along.
I know. And as I remembered the extraordinary speech and saw the agony in her face, the greater agony in Alan's, there came the great irreparable cleavage between morality and me. In a swift, merciful flame, the last of my mortal emotions, gross and tenacious they must have been, was consumed. My cold grasp of Alan loosened, and a new, unearthly love of him bloomed in my heart. Aww. It was now, however, in a difficulty in which my experience in the newer state was scarcely sufficient to deal. How could I make it plain to Alan and Theresa that I wished to bring them together to heal the wounds that I had just made? This is a fickle-ass ghost. Pityingly, remorsefully, I lingered near them all that night and the next day, and by that time had brought myself to the point of a great determination. In the little time that was left, before Theresa should be gone and Alan bereft and desolate, I saw the one way that lay open to me to convince them of my acquiescence in their destiny. In the deepest, darkest, and silence of the next night, I made a greater effort than it will ever be necessary for me to make again. When they think of me, Alan and Theresa, I pray now that they will recall what I did that night, and that my 1,000 frustrations and selfishness may shrivel and be blown from their indulgent memories.
Yeah, I hope they'll remember me for this night and not for the night I appeared as a scary ghost in the middle of their first makeout session.
Yet the following morning, as she had planned, Theresa appeared at breakfast dressed for her journey. Above in her room there were sounds of departure. They spoke little during the brief meal, but when it was ended, Alan said, "Theresa, there is half an hour before you go. Will you come upstairs with me? I had a dream that I must tell you of." "Alan!" She looked at him frightened, but went with him. "It was of Francis you dreamed," she said quietly as they entered the library together. "Did I say it was a dream? But I was awake, thoroughly awake. I had not been sleeping well, and I heard twice the striking of the clock, and as I lay there looking at the stars and thinking of you, Theresa, she came to me, stood there before me in my room. It was no sheeted specter, you understand. It was Frances, literally she. She wasn't wearing a fucking sheet.
It wasn't a Scooby-Doo ghost.
Who came up with that?
I don't know, but apparently it was a thing at least as far back as 1908.
I think it's been a thing for a long time. I think it's just really funny. In some inexplicable fashion, I seemed to be aware that she wanted me to make known something, and I waited, watching her face. After a few moments it came. She did not speak precisely. That is, I am sure I heard no sound, yet the words that came from her were definite enough. She said, "Don't let Theresa leave you. Take her and keep her." And then she went away. Was that a dream? "I had not meant to tell you," Theresa eagerly answered, "but now I must. It is all too wonderful. What time did your clock strike, Alan?" "1, the last time." "Yes, it was then that I awoke, and she had been with me. I had not seen her, but her arm had been around me, and her kiss was on my cheek. Oh, I knew it. It was unmistakable, and the sound of her voice was with me." "Then she bade you, too?" "Yes, to stay with you." I am glad we told each other. She smiled tearfully and began to fasten her wrap. But you're not going now, Alan cried. You know that you cannot now that she has asked you to stay. Then you believe, as I do, that it was she, Theresa demanded. I can never understand, but I know, he answered her. And now you will not go? I am freed. There will be no further semblance of me in my old home, no sound of my voice, no dimmest echo of my earthly self. They have no further need of me, the two that I have brought together. Theirs is the fullest joy that the dwellers in the shell of sense can know. Mine is the transcendent joy of the unseen spaces. The end.
Lovely.
It's really pretty. I'm like very
It's
emotional
very sweet.
about it, actually. Like, it like went from like very like, oh shit, oh damn, to like very like, again, like last week's, what would you do? Like when you see a loved one in pain and you can help them. Like I said, like before we even knew that's what she was going to do, I'm like, if I saw my sister like that, I'd be like, oh, well, shit, no, I'm going to like do everything I can to make her happy in that life because I'm not in that life anymore.
It had very much to me the feel of a lot of those movies that came out, like from the late 80s to the sort of late 90s that deal with ghosts who are trying to figure out what their unfinished business is.
Yeah. Oh, there's a movie, Jennifer Gardner's in it. It's in Ireland. Her husband dies. And like all these letters come out after that like lead her on this journey, and they lead her to his brother or like his cousin. And they like along the journey and they fall in love, and like it, like she feels very guilty about it. But then like the last letter is like basically saying, I want you to be happy and I like want this for you.
So it's
like,
thematically very similar to this one.
Very similar. I'm actually going to look it up because I like only saw it once and it was a really beautiful movie. And now I'm like, fuck was that movie? It was really good. Yeah. Catch and Release. It's called.
The one that for some reason came to mind for me because of the unfinished business thing, because she was able to move on when she had like figured out what she was doing, it's a Robert Downey Jr. movie.
I know what you're
Heart
talking
and
about.
Souls.
Yes.
Where like he has these 4 ghosts that grow up with him or something.
Yeah.
And he ends up having to like help them complete their.
Oh my God. I'd forgotten about that movie. That's when he was still like Robert Downey Jr. like.
Oh yeah.
No, but yeah, that's like, it's it really is a common thing in movies. Like there's another one that I can't think of right now.
Did Casper have unfinished business?
Casper was just so friendly.
I don't really remember what that movie was about.
Like the movie with Christina Ricci?
Yeah.
I think he did, actually. He was a kid.
Right.
He was like a child who had died in that house, like tragically, like of like scarlet fever or, something like that. But then, oh, no, I do remember it in Casper because he actually like comes back to life for like the night of Halloween when she has that big dance for all her friends at school. For like one dance, she gets to dance with him, and then he like, because he's fallen in love with her because he's a teenage boy and like,
Yeah.
And then he goes
back to being the ghost that kind of looks like a little spermie.
I think then he leaves. I think then he transcends because he finally got to like experience love or something like that. If I remember
Christina
correctly.
Ricci, if you're listening, and I know you are, I'm sorry that we couldn't remember what your movie was about.
She probably doesn't even remember what that was about. She was like 12. She's like, oh yeah, that movie that I made in between the 2 Addams Family movies. Well, if you are still listening, good for you. And please share this episode with someone you like or someone you love. Or if you're a ghost and you're listening, pass it on to your loved ones as a way to go, I love you.
And if you're not a ghost and you're listening to this, when you're done listening, take out your headphones and play it again, but out loud in the open so that the ghosts around you can hear it.
There you go. Or, just share it. Or, go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and subscribe and review us. That's awesome. And if you really, really love us, you can also buy us a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com. We have a page that's on our website, which is campfireclassicspodcast.com. And you can learn all about us. You can become a patron if you like us even more. We love support. We are an independent podcast, so...
It has been pointed out that on our website, the Buy Me a Cup of Coffee thing is very hard to find on the mobile site.
But is very easy to find.
If you want to buy us a cup of coffee, go to the non-mobile version of the site because it's on the header there. You can find it on every page.
Or you can literally go to buymeacupofcoffee.com and search Campfire Classics because I have done that many times to share the link when I'm asked. So there you go. The internet makes it easy. Honestly, if you just type in Campfire Classics in your Google search, you'll probably find all these things we're saying and rambling off at the end of our podcast.
Yeah.
So do all that, and we love you guys. And thanks for continuing to listen.
And go listen to Figure It Out. Tell Julia that Campfire Classics said hi.
And that Heather shared a really embarrassing mental health story during this episode that she would probably really like on her episode.
Yeah. Julia, if you're still listening for some reason and want Heather to share that story on your podcast.
That's gold. That's podcast gold, I'm telling you. Pooping sells everything. Weird poops. We all poop. Everybody poops.
Everybody poops. Sometimes it's weird.
Everybody poops. That's the end of this episode.
And on that note, this has been Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
Oh, I'm going to have more wine now, though.